our slides and our information. Cool. And I'm going to attempt to share my screen now, so bear with me. Can everyone see it? Amazing. All right, so yeah, we're EFRI Northern Alberta. Like I said, my name is Rihanna, and then I have Kit with me as well. We are so excited to be here again, so thanks for having us. I'm not going to redo a land acknowledgement. I think JHC did a really good job with their land acknowledgement, but a little thing that we've been doing has been kind of reconciliations. So we've been pairing our land acknowledgements with actions that we've been taking towards reconciliation. So this month I've been doing our Indigenous Canada course that the U of A offers, as well as reading Braiding Sweetgrass. So I just encourage everyone to kind of think about what they're doing for reconciliation as well.
Is this me now? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So Elizabeth Fry was a real person in 1780. She was born in England to a wealthy Quaker family. This time in history, women weren't really afforded a whole lot of rights and privileges, but the Quakers always believed in equality for all. So Elizabeth Fry was educated, respected, and allowed to use her voice. A custom of the time was to take young upper class women on a tour of the Newgate prison in London. It was supposed to scare them into a life of being docile. And so when she took her tour in 1813, she was appalled by the way that women and children were kept. Sorry? And so this helped her, it inspired her to dedicate her life to making change in the prison system and bringing hope to the women while they were there. She'd learned in some of the smaller prisons, women and men were not separated. And in others where men were labeled lunatics or who were in danger from other men, they could be placed in the women's section, sometimes even just for the jailer's convenience. And as a result, a lot of babies were born to the inmate mothers who lived in the prisons. Female prisoners were also kept for the domestic or sexual convenience of the jailer. Prison fees were very hard on women because they were often friendless and penniless. In some prisons, the doors between the men's and women's sections were unlocked at night. And in many cases, prostitution was the only way a woman could afford to supplement the really awful prison diet that they were fed. Women prisoners were whipped in public until 1817 and in private till 1820. So Elizabeth Fry's insight, persistence, organizational ability, and her willingness to see a divine light in each person resulted in striking reforms in the manner in which women and children were treated in the Newgate prison.
So Elizabeth Fry had multiple impacts in our prison system. She introduced reforms by encouraging women to care for themselves and their children. She convinced authorities to set up schools inside the prison so women and children could attend and be provided basic education. She provided materials so the women could knit and do needlework, and also found a market where they were able to sell their goods. She insisted that women prisoners be kept in separate quarters from male prisoners and that they be supervised by other females as well. And that she also had the essence that her thinking about prisoners, male and female, was that they were all fellow human beings, and their treatment therefore should be based on the principles of justice and humanity.
So EFRI Northern Alberta, we started out as the Elizabeth Fry Society of Edmonton. It was actually a small group of volunteers that came up from Calgary. They got an office in, or more like a closet really, in the old Provincial Courthouse here in Edmonton in 1977. This team of volunteers dedicated themselves to serving the community and were able to secure funding for the agency by the next year, by the following year. And it was from the Clifford E. Lee Foundation. So they were the first to provide financial support to the EFRI family. With that support, we were able to become a member agency of the United Way. Our first program offered by EFRI Edmonton was our court work program. And shortly thereafter, we started a formal prison visitation program. And since then, we have continued to expand and add programs throughout our years of operation. Our original volunteers went into their work with open hearts, open minds, and this experience showed them firsthand the deep flaws in the system. They heard the stories of women that they worked with. They saw common and recurrent trauma and injustice in the lives of these women, and began to understand that until women worked through these problems, reintegration into the community would be very difficult. And we continue to do the same thing today. We changed our name a couple years ago from the Elizabeth Fry Society of Edmonton to Elizabeth Fry Society of Northern Alberta to better encompass the expansions in all of the communities we serve. We welcome collaboration and partnership from communities as far south as Red Deer and all the way north to Fort McMurray, including all the rural and Indigenous communities in Northern Alberta. And we tried to address the unique access to justice needs and gaps in service that are affecting folks in those rural areas.
So our goals as an organization are to reduce the number of women who are criminalized and imprisoned in Canada, to increase the availability of community-based, publicly funded social service, health, and educational resources available for marginalized, victimized, criminalized, and imprisoned women, to increase collaborative work among EFRI societies and other community organizations that work to address poverty, racism, and other forms of oppression. And our mission is to advance the dignity and worth of all women, girls, and gender diverse people who are or may be at risk of being criminalized. So next we'll go into some of our programs. Oh, I can make things work. So first up, we have our Work for Women program. So our employment services program offers services to women who have been or are at risk of being in contact with the legal system. Women accessing employment services face a variety of barriers such as poverty, mental health issues, addiction issues, child welfare or childcare concerns, criminal records, isolation, illiteracy, a lack of education and training, or just general discrimination. We work with each woman's unique situation and goals in collaboration with other community agencies, and we seek to reduce women's barriers to employment by identifying their individual barriers and allowing them to explore their personal strengths as well as goals, developing a collaborative, personal, and achievable action plan, offering one-on-one resume development, cover letter writing, life skills counseling, and providing access to job readiness workshops as well. We'll also go into job searching tools and resources, how to access the online job banks, where to go for free access to computers, internet, telephone. We advocate for women on issues related to labor standards and human rights. We refer women to training programs, educational institutions, and other community resources to address basic living needs and assist women to access employment opportunities, as well as appropriate interview and workwear clothing.
Next up is our housing program. So we do have a housing program. It provides subsidized housing to Indigenous women who have a history of homelessness and victimization through sexual exploitation. In Edmonton, nearly half, so about 47% of our homeless individuals identify as Indigenous. And our housing program operates on the principle that housing is an essential human right, that individuals cannot overcome the obstacles in their life without a safe, permanent place to call home. Participants work really closely with our whole team in order to achieve and maintain personal success. So this might be employment or schooling, something like that, family reunification, pro-social living, healthy lifestyle, and sobriety. While they're working on these things, they are also working towards independent living. The aim of the program is to provide women with security, opportunity, and wraparound supports to empower them for successful reintegration into their communities. Our housing program hopes to reduce the criminalization or recriminalization of women committing offenses related to homelessness. Hope to reduce the harms or risks to women being victimized through human trafficking. And we hope to reduce human trafficking occurring in our community.
Our financial literacy program, it helps to foster women's self-worth through group and individual support with skills such as budgeting, debt reduction, goal setting, building assets, coping strategies, and stress management. Our financial literacy workshop and individual support through this program help women thrive in the community. Our program runs several times a year and lasts for 12 weeks for the entirety of the program. I believe they meet once a week for their programming, as well as for Edmonton and close area, there is a match savings portion. So women can have their savings matched at the end of the program as well. So they can walk away with a bit of savings.
We have some youth programs. So these are geared to girls and non-binary folks ages 12 to 17. And it's sort of geared towards teenage folks who want to address issues they're facing, to become more empowered, to make strong and positive choices for themselves and their futures. Yes, try to provide them with the skills and knowledge that that youth need in order to make healthy life choices, and hopefully then preventing further future involvement in the criminal legal system. Our youth program addresses the realities that teen girls face in their lives, and deals with a lot of topics such as self-esteem, healthy sexuality, things like that. The program is FASD friendly and is designed to be able to meet the unique needs of girls with this diagnosis while building emotional, interpersonal, and interpersonal skills for all participants. Program workshops again address such topics as identity, healthy relationships, self-esteem, self-care and coping, emotion management, body image and confidence, healthy sexuality, communication, shoplifting behaviors, peer pressure, and other important issues. Our program can be very flexible, both in its content and location. So we could offer programs in different schools and other communities as well. So we have girls groups, and that is an 8 to 10 session program that's run in schools, group homes, or the community. We have Inner Circle, which is a program to strengthen the relationship between women and the girls they care for, or the caregiver and the youth. We have a Rights for Youth, and this presentation is designed specifically for grade 9 social studies classes. We have Lead the Way, which is opportunities to foster youth leadership. We have a shoplifting program specifically for youth to help with shoplifting behaviors. And we have CAFE, which is Court Assistance for Female Youth, which is a mentorship program for youth who are moving through the court system. All of the programs are free and LGBTQ2S+ friendly.
Next up, we have our Indigenous Reintegration and Outreach Support Program. which is a bit of a mouthful of a title. So this program encourages Indigenous women to reconnect with their culture and develop a sense of themselves as Indigenous peoples. It supports the efforts of women in reducing the likelihood that they will come in contact or continue to be in contact with the legal system. This program focuses on cultural awareness, talking and healing circles, arts and crafts workshops, ceremonies, one-on-one support, traditional parenting, referrals, and retreats. The Indigenous Women's Program was established because we recognize the large number of women who come into contact with the legal system are of Indigenous descent. Through this program, we hope to make our agency more responsive to the unique challenges faced by Indigenous women. And this program is deeply rooted in medicine wheel teachings. We believe that healing is holistic. When we nurture our own medicine wheel, we create balance and harmony within.
Next up is our independent legal advice for survivors of sexual assault. This project provides up to 4 hours of free legal advice to survivors of any gender of sexual violence. We have a team of lawyers that are trained by our staff, and the training we've developed is sorry, lost my train of thought. The training we developed is in trauma-informed care, gender-based intersectional analysis, and Indigenous historical trauma. So our program is open to adults who are currently over the age of 18, again, of any gender, who live in Alberta and who experience sexual violence in Alberta. So it's a trauma-informed, healing-centered program that operates primarily in Edmonton, though the services are available in all of our areas, in all the areas that we serve. The project aims to remove barriers for survivors who are considering coming forward and empowers survivors by giving them a better understanding of their legal options. We know that sexual violence is one of the most underreported crimes in Canada, that 95% of survivors do not report their assaults to police. And while you know, we're not necessarily trying to increase reporting with this project. We are just trying to help folks have a good understanding of what their options are if that's something they're thinking about. Sexual violence most often affects women and girls. We know 87% of survivors are women and about 94% of the perpetrators are men. In 2014, there were 83,000 reported sexual assaults in Alberta. So if we think about the fact that that's only 5% of, you know, what's actually happening, yeah, there's a lot of things going on. And so just to kind of clarify, sexual violence is any kind of sexual act committed against someone without that person's freely given consent. It can be physical or non-contact and affects all ages and genders, and it is against the law.
Next, we have court support. So one of our first programs we established and how we kind of started as an organization was through our court program. It has changed over the years with funding and courthouses and all of that stuff. But we still currently offer court support information and referrals. Our team is working to increase our presence in courthouses across the province through volunteers and hopefully having some regional volunteers in all of the courthouses to help people out with navigation and some emotional support during court. We also monitor trends and areas of concern in relation to access to justice issues and use that to help propel our advocacy during court.
So Prison to Community is kind of an umbrella program that encompasses a few different aspects of our services. So we go into the Edmonton Remand Center, Fort Saskatchewan Correctional Center, the Edmonton Institution for Women, and Buffalo Sage and Elpida as well. We provide individual supports, information and referrals, recreational and social development programs, bail facilitation in terms of like release planning and some bail assistance. We provide advocacy and assurance of prisoners' rights. Again, pre-release planning that could be for parole or pre-trial custody. We also provide support letters. We do prison visitations and offer one-on-one support through that. We do workshop facilitation. These are rehabilitative programs offered in the institutions. And we do referrals for community resources for whatever community the person's going to be released into.
Next up, we have Center 170, or the Visitation Center. It's lovingly called both. So in partnership with Alberta Justice and Solicitor General, we operate the Visitation Center, Center 170, for the Edmonton Remand Center. The center uses video conferencing technology to connect prisoners with their family members and friends. This technology makes it safer for visits, more child-friendly, and allows for more visits and longer visiting hours. Staff are also EFRI staff, so they're available to help you access resources or provide some extra support in that sense as well. Visiting hours are 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., 1 to 4, and then 6 to 9. With these hours, up to 960 visits a day are possible.
Record suspensions. So we have a record suspension program, and that helps folks with the process of applying for a record suspension. It was formerly called a pardon. You might be more familiar with that term. So what it does is basically seal the criminal record. And so it increases, of course, employment prospects, school and volunteer opportunities, all that sort of thing. And we found that once a record suspension is awarded, it helps to increase the participants' feelings of self-worth and self-esteem. And generally, folks feel like this is a new beginning for them. They don't have that same sort of fear entering employment interviews and things like that.
We have our general community resources program. So that offers psychological, educational, vocational, and practical assistance to women. We offer one-on-one appointments to meet your needs through available resources and referrals to other agencies and organizations. We connect with people, agencies, and programs in Edmonton that will help you reach your goals. We have a clothing closet that is open on Mondays if people need access to clothing. And we also have hygiene kits that are available, usually including shampoo, soap, deodorant, menstrual supplies, and things that people need to meet their basic needs. The Community Resources Program also offers Stoplifting, which is a group for adult women to help them understand underlying issues that leads to shoplifting or fraud, and to help them make healthy choices in the future.
So I sort of mentioned this when I was going over the Prison to Community program. These are the workshops that we currently provide in the Edmonton Remand Center or Edmonton Young Offender Center, depending on where folks are being held. So we have a few different ones. Introduction to Wellbriety is sort of a recovery-based or sobriety recovery program based in Indigenous teachings, really using the medicine wheel. So we just do an introduction to that in the institutions. We do an introduction to our longer community stoplifting program. We do an introduction to traditional parenting. So that's parenting from an Indigenous perspective. We have Me and Money, which we also offer under our financial literacy workshop series. We just do sort of an introduction to that, where folks can then come and we encourage folks anyway to engage with it in the community when they can, to access that match savings. We also do emotional regulation, changing paths, Indigenous wellness, and writing works.
I call these extra services. So we also do outreach Fridays. On pretty much every Friday, we'll go out and provide some harm reduction, food, or basic needs supplies to our vulnerable populations throughout the downtown core, as well as occasionally we'll do some visits to other organizations for the day or other communities and do some outreach in those communities as well. We do some Christmas cheer, so Christmas gifts for kids whose mothers or guardians are in custody. And then we try to do gift bags and Christmas parties for incarcerated women at the institutions that we serve as well. As well as we can provide some bus tickets, mail services, again, the clothing closet, and hygiene supplies when we're able to as well.
So some of our key training that we developed these for our independent legal advice program that I mentioned before. So we have our gender-based and intersectional approaches training, which covers a lot of isms, intersectionality, like what that is, intersectional approaches, how identities and experiences kind of interact with each other. We've partnered with Native Counseling Services to provide Indigenous social history. So that just deals with, of course, the legacy of residential schools and intergenerational trauma that we're still dealing with today. And then, of course, we have trauma-informed care. And so that one just walks people through some of the steps to providing a trauma-informed approach to their clients. These are all mandatory trainings for the lawyers we work with in the ILA project, as well as all of our volunteers.
And then I just put in some FAQs. So who can access our services? Do they have to have a criminal record? So any woman, girl, or gender diverse person can access any of our services. Our help is not contingent on having a criminal record either. We have a couple programs with certain requirements, but in general, we can provide help to everyone identifying as female or non-binary. Do we have staff in all service areas? So most of our coordinators are based out of our Edmonton main office, but we do have, as Tony's been calling them, headquarters in Red Deer and Fort McMurray. And most of our programming can be offered online or in a hybrid format, and each community can request in-person programming that we can work together to try and deliver. And our programs referral only. No, we don't require clients to formally be referred to any of our programs or services. However, we do often get referrals from parole, probation, or alternative measures. So yeah, that's all we had in terms of our programs and services. I hope you learned a little bit about us and what we do. If you kind of need anything at all, both Kit and I are available through email or phone. And I guess we'll jump into questions.
Awesome. Well, there was a few questions. Well, first off, thank you so much. That was a wealth of information and so good. And thank you as well to Tony, who was answering some questions in the chat. But I do want to go back to some of the ones in the chat. And forgive me, there is no first name. I saw D. Bowl wanted to ask a question about the ceremonies and elders. So I do want to give the chance for them to ask the question if they'd like to get more clarity. Dee, did you want to ask your question about like any ceremonies or elders, or did you feel like you got your question answered? If you'd like, or I can repeat your question that was in the chat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, my just question is just what type of ceremonies do you guys hold for the women? Is there elder or knowledge keeper involvement? And what type of Indigenous perspective are you guys using for the traditional parenting? And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Those are great questions. Thank you. Yes, typically we have an elder that will lead any of those ceremonies that we partner with in the community.